Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and on my recent adventure up in Maine, where I spent 9 days and paddled 100 miles in the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, we started out our journey on the Chamberlain Lake, and it's one of the largest, deepest lakes in northern Maine with over 11,000 acres and over 154 feet deep. You can imagine it was quite a vast waterway, so when we had the opportunity to camp on day 2 at Ellis Brook, I was very excited as this particular environment had this big cove with shallow edges, and it was also fed by a small brook that was quite easy for me to hike down. Now, right at the spot where we put in, or took out actually with our canoe, there were little tiny fish everywhere, so I had to drop my camera in and see what was going on. You can see there's some American val, there's jumbles of rocks, there's a thick coating of algae. I really didn't see very many crustaceans or snails or shrimp or anything like that, but I saw tons and tons and tons of these little fish. Now, this time of day, it was around probably 11 or 12 in the morning, is when you're paddling out in these vast lakes, you have to get up very early and be done very early to avoid the strong afternoon winds. I spent a lot of time just looking around at all these little fish, which I believe are eastern Blacknose dace, which is a bit unusual because they're usually a creek fish. That being said, with this having a feeder creek right into this cove, it's entirely possible that's what they are. You guys have to let me know down in the comments if I'm right or wrong, or if you have any other ideas. It's also possible that they could be fine scale dace, which are well documented here. Again, these are native to these waters, but they're not often seen here. Anyway, I was really curious about the water, so I decided to do some testing. I wasn't sure what to expect, honestly, and when I stuck my TDS pen and saw a TDS of 12, I was a bit surprised because that is exceptionally dilute. So I decided to bust out my API Aquaspin and see what that said. Now, I think it's important to mention the results of this Aquaspin. I have found that every single time I've tested water, it has shown trace amounts of both ammonia and phosphorus. So I'm sort of ruling those parameters out. All the others have been quite variable, so we'll take those into more consideration at this time. You can see that it was exceptionally soft water, pH of 6.6, really low alkalinity and hardness from all of the fallen leaf litter and wood litter around the area. As I was standing there, the winds blew in, and I looked down at my feet, and all of a sudden, there were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those dace literally everywhere, giving me a much-needed manicure, even though this was only day 2 of my trip. It was really fun to watch them school all over, and as I watched, I could see all sizes of fry as well as all of these adults. Now, these guys were only maybe 2 inches in adult length. They were pretty tiny, and from the research, if this is the right fish, they do their spawning right before this time of year, usually in late May, early June, so it makes sense that they would do. And again, they are common in northeastern waterways, so it is entirely possible. Now, these guys generally feed on algae, so that also makes sense. And they're also really commonly eaten by the larger fish that are out in the bigger body of water, so that also makes sense. Again, let me know down in the comments. But you can see just how many of them there were everywhere I looked. It was a really nice break for me from the really big bodies of water to spend time in this cove for the afternoon. We hadn't seen much wildlife at this point, so it was very exciting to see this amount of fish. I decided to go adventuring up the little stream, and everything looked pretty much the same. I think that pile of sand there is a nest for some of the fish, but I'm not entirely sure. Again, I have a lot of learning to do on native fish, but I'm really enjoying exploring it like this. So let me know down in the comments if you guys are enjoying it too. There wasn't a ton of plants, just that mainly that American val and occasionally some other things like hornworty looking things. It was a beautiful day. This is the start of the creek. You can see everything is really pretty shallow, but as you looked up the creek, there were bigger, deeper pools, and I decided to go explore some of those to see what the fish looked like up there. Now, I was fully expecting just to see more of the same fish, but you never know what you're going to get. There are a ton of, I think there's at least 15 different species found in this particular lake, so I was curious to see what we would find. Within seconds of dropping my camera in the water, I think because of the afternoon winds, It was really kicking up all the sediment, stirring up the bugs, stirring up some of the algae, and the fish were just in a feeding frenzy. They were coming out by the hundreds, just swarming everywhere we were. And it's really common in these waterways, since people do so much sport fishing, that they set minnow traps in order to catch these little guys to use as bait for the bigger ones. But for me, I don't know, they kind of reminded me a lot of the shiners and things like that I've kept in my Hillstream aquarium. And their care would probably be really similar. And while they're not the flashiest of fish, I would imagine with a specialized setup, you could easily do a biotope for these guys in the home aquaria. And maybe that's something I'll do in the future, is start setting up regional biotopes. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing this really neat little slice of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway. The next morning we got up, paddled across the lake, did some rapids, and continued on our adventure. If you like this content, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks as always for the continued support.